All right, we're recording now. So again, this is Mike Brooks, and I'm with Frank DiBenedetto from Audit. We are going to share some really cool stuff. Frank's been doing some interesting things over the past year. And just to give a quick history, Frank founded Audit. I think everybody knows that. But Frank's the founder of Audit. And I'm going to let you. I'm going to volley this off to you to tell a little bit of your story, Frank, on why you found it, how you found it, and all that. But um, long story short, Frank's full time in his MSP. He's an MSP. He's doing it every day. He's out there. And as we run Audit, I can't even get Frank on the phone half the time because he's busy doing QBRs, sales presentations. He's running his Audit. He's kind of like the the incubator, I guess, or the kind of test subject. We watch Frank do what he's doing, and we get to kind of validate what's happening in Audit based on what Frank's doing. So let me see if I can show my screen here, and I'm going to give you a little introduction, Frank.
All right.
All right, so this is Frank. I can drive through here if you want. This is, you want to talk? I'll ping it off to you, Frank. Why don't you take over from here?
Sure. You got me do my own introduction? I
Yeah,
can do that.
absolutely.
I know this one pretty good.
Yeah.
So like Mike said, I do own an MSP, but if we roll all the way backwards, I don't have any formal sales training. That's really the reason why Mike's kind of showing that I have a mechanical engineering degree. So I am wired to be technical. I am not a natural sales guy. I started my career in the financial services world and then found a niche in IT and working with financial companies. So that's our primary vertical. So I've got some good street cred with financial services firms when they come in as prospects. But truth be told, I kind of suck at selling. I think I'm passionate about what I do, and I can speak eloquently about it, but I'm not a true sales guy.
Well, I interrupt you there, Frank, because
Mhm.
I think the best way to say this is like, let me see if I can grab my pen here. Hang on a second. You maybe used to suck at selling. I don't think you suck at selling. I'm really good at selling. I study sales. I've been doing it for over 20 years. I'm pretty darn good at it. I know that I know it. I teach it. I use it. And I know when people suck at selling. Frank doesn't suck at selling. Maybe he did when this started, and that's what Audit was for, is to really fix that situation.
Yeah.
But
So let me
you
qualify that. Let me qualify that then. So I think that when I was doing traditional managed services up until about 5 years ago, I probably did what a bunch of people have done, and I lowered my price to get sales at times, right? So I'd go in and I'd make my presentation. Like everybody else, I like techie stuff, shiny things, whatever the hot topic was. It was BDRs at one time, it was cloud another time. These days it's cybersecurity. So whatever the latest and greatest was, I'd use as marketing. I'd go in there and I'd try to dazzle them with tech, probably confuse them, and then end up lowering my prices down to a point where they'd buy from me. And I'd make the sale, but I was always a little disappointed in myself because I knew that, lowering my price was not the right thing to do. And I knew if I kept doing that one day, I'd have to look back at my numbers and I would regret that because I wouldn't be able to run the business properly. And when this became really, really apparent, Mike, was about 5, 6 years ago when we decided to become more of a cloud services provider. So 5, 6 years ago, cloud was the new shiny object, and we really saw that as the future. And I made a play to go all in on cloud. I knew we didn't want to build something, so I partnered with a company called OS33. We're still with them today. They've been a great partner of ours. But now, because there's a partner there, I couldn't lower my prices down because eventually I wouldn't make any money because I have to pay OS33. And on top of that, it was more expensive than what we were doing for managed services. So I started doing the same types of presentations that I had done in the past, except I could no longer lower my prices. they were higher than everybody else's prices because I was selling something different. And 5 years ago, it's kind of unique, right? The cloud compared to managed services is not apples to apples. And I started losing deals based on price. And I started to really get frustrated. And that was what led me to figure out a better way to sell. And I really did it just for myself. That's the whole story. There's no other secrets in there. It was I had to figure out something better to do, or I wasn't going to be able to sell. So when I say I sucked at selling, it was primarily for those reasons and those parameters that I've outlined for you.
Right, right. And this is a presentation I was doing just about Warranty Master, so that's why that says Warranty Master in there, but I'm going to skip that. We talk about Warranty Master quite a bit because Frank uses it in his process. So Frank, I want to, this was kind of what prompted this, and me and you talked about this in detail here, but let's take a look at starting kind of here, and I'll let you explain things here.
So this is this year. What I can tell you is that we launched Audit. I think we developed it in 2016. Towards the end, at the end of 2016, I had one of those client kind of, I'll call it a disaster. I mean, we all have those war stories, but we were sharing space with one of our clients. They had a bunch of space. It was a financial services client, right in our wheelhouse. They paid us a lot of money per month, and it was like a bad marriage. It got to the point where, we were staying together for the kids, and they abruptly ended our contract, even though we had 6 months left on it. And remember, we had space with them, and I just couldn't. They said, "Oh, you could stay. You could just pay rent," and it was an offset. And I just said, "There's no way I'm staying here." And so that year, 2016, it's not on here, but we actually lost at the end of the year. We were down about $2,000 of MRR and had no office space. So coming into 2017, I really I thought, well, I've got Audit to use, and I'm going to put that into place. But it took about a good year. It took really all of 2017 to really figure out how to use Audit properly. 2018 and 2019 was really when I began using it full time, and I don't deviate from my process at all. So what you're seeing here now of 2019 is really almost a full year now of a well-oiled machine. And again, I wanted to provide that context because when I started using this overnight, like we didn't have the whole process out. I had to really fumble my way through this a little bit. But 2019, right now, our goal was to put on $3,000 a month of MRR, which would have brought us to about 36,000 on the year. We're up about 48,000 right now, and we have 33,000 in the pipeline that I'm hoping to close. I don't know if I'll get all of it, but I could get half of it. So that'll be a banner year. We're at 196,000 of MRR right now as of October. And our goal really changed a little bit once I realized that this process was really working. So we're trying to hit 200,000. So I think we'll do it, but that'll be a good milestone for us at Two River Tech.
Yeah, you're right. So just to kind of run through the numbers, I mean, when you started doing it, when you started doing what you were doing, and you made that conscious decision this year, you actually started to lose a little bit of revenue. You want to kind of dig into that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. I glazed over. So one of the things we decided that we would start doing last year pretty religiously is quarterly business reviews, because there's a lot of money that we all leave on the table. You guys have no idea how much revenue is left there in things that you're not either upselling or cross-selling to existing clients. And I've become a master at getting my clients to pay me money to do what's good for them and what makes our job easier, right? So I'll say that again. I'm a master at getting our clients to spend money on what's good for them, and it makes it easier for us to do our job as an MSP. So the only way to do that is, I believe, through effective quarterly business reviews. And as we went through the business reviews, I also started to realize that some of our clients, the smaller ones usually, were not the best fit. And my goal here isn't to have a million clients. It's to have, really good clients that we enjoy working with and that are profitable and respect and appreciate, the consulting that we do for them. So we decided to get rid of some clients. And so in the beginning of the year, you actually see a couple negatives, and that's simply because we got rid of some of the clients that were created a lot of noise for us that we never really saw as being a good fit going forward and didn't fit our mold. And to be honest with you, it takes my time away as a business owner, and it takes the time away from my staff from bringing on new clients or prospecting or doing business reviews for existing. We got rid of them. So we're up 48,000 despite dropping some clients off the cliff. So that's why you see some negatives there.
Yeah, that's pretty, it takes a lot of guts to do that. That's a lot of belief in the process. And you had already seen, now let's go back in time. You started, audit launched in 2016. You had been using the process before audit had been launched. You were using it originally for sales presentations. You started using it for business reviews. And I think actually, if I remember it correctly, I think you lost that client in 2017 because we were on the road. I remember us being on the road when you got that call, I think. And now you had gone, you had spent quite a bit of time proofing out the concept. So by the time you get to 2018, you made a conscious decision. You knew you weren't going to continue losing revenue. You knew that it was going to be an upward trend. You can see here, quarter 2, quarter 3, and then year to date. I'm sure you're going to, based on what I understand, watching you, I'm sure you're going to get that $50,000 goal, or I'm sorry, add that goal to where you're trying to get up to above 200. Right.
Yep.
I'm going to be surprised if you don't. So that's quite a bit of revenue. So I mean, let's, and well, I'm going to give a little bit of the process. Like I'm going to go really, really fast through this. Again, this is a presentation that I did. I wasn't actually thinking I would do this here, but I kind of want to break down what you do for your quarterly business review process a little bit.
Okay.
And you can add color to this, but I will tell people we did a whole presentation on this that is on the website. You can go to the blog, you can go to auditforit.com, go to our blog and look for the quarterly business review system, and you go through this stuff in detail. And it also provides all the materials that you talk about in here, spreadsheets, all sorts of stuff. So you basically, this is real simple. You're reviewing your solution stack and identifying any red and yellow opportunities where you have a spreadsheet where you color code it. So anybody whose problem areas are red and yellow on that spreadsheet. You generate your warranty master report. You print a copy of your agreement. You print a copy of last month's latest monthly agreement. You're going to discuss with your team client issues. Then you're going to clone the prior audit in audit sales presentation system. You're going to update it with current data. You're going to print the audit report, bind it up, generate a proposal for any sales opportunities you have, and then place the audit report, warranty master report, agreement, and invoice in a folder, and confirm your QBR appointment by email. And then your meeting is reviewing the audit report, reviewing warranty master report, discussing any.
Since you're going fast, let's step back real quick 1 second. I just want to, there was a few things I want to point out there that I think has a significant
Go back
impact.
to this page.
Yeah. So just a couple things. So the solution stack really, some of you heard me talk about this. It's really all my clients alphabetically on the left, A to Z, and then just a bunch of columns. So whatever your solutions are, whatever you sell should be listed. So if it says, ID agent, and the next thing says Datto, and then the next thing says, Office 365, it's really everything that you sell that you would potentially want your client to have. And we just very simply color code it red, yellow, or green. If it's green, it means they have it. So it's kind of cool for the techs to look at too, because they could see, oh yeah, they're on Office 365, or yeah, they have dark web monitoring. Red means that they don't have it, and that usually means there's a sales opportunity there. And then yellow is usually something in the middle. Like sometimes it might be, well, they don't have it, but it's not really a good fit anyway for the client. So oftentimes we'll put a little note in there, but it makes it really, really easy for us to just spot check. And my goal, just like with audit, when I do the presentations, my goal is to have as much green on my solution stack spreadsheet as possible. It makes it super, super easy to get a high level overview. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. And Mike, you mentioned we did provide a layout of the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Warranty Master is a perfect complement to audit because it's simple. It doesn't drag the end users into the technical minutia. And the one thing that we see the most concern about, usually from the end user perspective, is always about the workstations, computers, laptops. So I just like to have a current report, and it seems to be that's the thing that we most often will budget around, so that's there. The other stuff that I bring is really just so I'm prepared. So if they ask me questions about the agreement or, hey, how much did we pay last month, I have it with me. Binding the report, that makes it look professional, right? There's a big difference between showing up with a crooked staple and papers all over the place, or binding it with, one of those like plastic spirals. I think we spent $100 on the machine to bind it, and another, $50 on the covers and the little spine. And it makes a big difference. It's like the difference between having a nice shirt and a tie and, maybe shoes and belt that match versus showing up and looking sloppy. That's how I view that. So I think it's very important. The solutions we sell aren't cheap, and I want it to look really professional. And all that aggregated together in terms of preparation is, like Mike said, 30 to 45 minutes. It doesn't take a ton of time. I don't do most of this. I have somebody, who's like an inside sales type person who prepares this, but I just want to add a little of that color there. I think that's important.
Absolutely. So here's your meeting. You review the audit report, you review a Warranty Master report, you discuss any service items, then you review the proposal for sales opportunities, make revisions and notes, and you close more MRR, and you pick the next QBR date while at the meeting. I mean, that's your process.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's, and the idea here is to really give them a little fly on the wall. Like, how did you do this last year when you decided to cut clients all the way up to adding almost 50,000 to date? Mm-hmm. How did you do that? So let's dig into what you're actually doing here.
So I kid around nowadays. I said basically I sell green boxes. So you have to remember, these are your clients. They know you, they like you, they trust you. You show up, a lot of times when you show up with all these service ticket reports and all this other stuff that we've been led to believe as MSPs that's like really important. Here's a secret. It's not that important to your client. The client is basically there like for a checkup, right? They don't want to go through an entire forensic analysis of everything. They want to know, hey, how are we doing? And believe me, they tell you if you're screwing up, they're going to tell you when you get there. So you got to listen. You have to listen when you're selling to prospects. They're going to tell you how to sell to them. And if they're your clients, they're going to tell you exactly either what they'll buy, what their concerns are, or what you need to improve upon, right? But the audit report is real nice and easy. And you know why it's even easier for us is because I bring the clients in when they're prospects using it. So the QBRs are just an extension of what we've been doing already. So I quite simply show up. They already know, oh, yeah, there's the report. And then if there's any red or yellow, they are immediately drawn to that. They're leaning forward. They want to hear about that. We're not going to review every green box, but we're going to certainly talk about the red and yellow. And, inevitably they'll say, well, how much is that? And I have my proposal with me just so I have my numbers. Now, usually there'll be some revisions. They might say, yeah, let's do that, but we don't need to do it for all 20 people. Let's just do it for 10. So I'll make notes and I'll, whatever the adjustments are. If they say, nah, we're not interested, I just say, okay, and I'm gonna put an X next to it on my proposal. And then when I go back afterwards, I send them the electronic version. And almost every time I sell something to them, again, I sell them something that's good for them and it makes it easier for me to do my job. and that increases the MRR. And it's a whole lot easier to do that than it is to get a new client. And then before I leave, I say, let's pick the next QBR date. You know, when I go to the dentist for a cleaning, they always say, would you like to make an appointment now, or you want to wait, 6 months? I said, let's make it now, because I know what'll happen. In 6 months, I'll be like, wow, it's been 6 months already. And by the time I get around to making the appointment, it'll be 12 months, right? Which is not good. So I just say, let's pick the date now. It's on the calendar, and now I don't have to worry about it. And then, all I have to do is look at next week and see what's coming up. I go, oh, QBR, and I just confirm it, and away we go.
Yeah, and I'm going to leave this up on the screen. I don't think I need to go through. Let's see what else we got here. That's just a graphic. That's the Warranty Master Report. I'm going to go down to this. I think this is the last page, just to kind of show what you're just to have an image up on the screen. I want this to be more of a conversation. We don't really have a canned presentation here. If anybody wants to see anything inside the audit, we can go in. But I really wanted to pre-frame this with a little bit of this stuff, just to talk about what you've been doing the past year from a sales and QBR point of view, because we have clients who use audit solely for business reviews. We have clients who use audit solely for sales presentations. I believe, based on the years of experience in watching and knowing who these clients are who are using it for both, the ones who do both are the most successful MSPs we have as users. So success leaves clues. If you are just getting started, or you're doing one or the other, and you really want to take it to the next level, you should be doing it for both. You should be using audit for both your sales presentation and QBRs, or business reviews. So let's have a conversation and back up into, I do want to touch on, how do you break down who you do business reviews for, Frank? Because you're not doing them for everybody.
That's right. So I also, for business reviews, what we do is we make a spreadsheet, and we actually divided it into thirds. So same type of spreadsheet with all the clients, except this time, instead of being sorted alphabetically, we do it by MRR. And then the top third, roughly, we do quarterly business reviews, because there's enough MRR on the table there that it's worth it for us to be meeting quarterly. The middle third, I actually have somebody that's inside sales that goes out and does those. So, she has a relationship with these clients that I've introduced her. She's been out on QBRs with me, so she kind of handles that. And what's great is she's not overly technical, but neither is any of the information that we're presenting. And she's trained, if somebody really wants to get real deep dive and some techie information, she's trained to say, I don't have that information with me right now, but when I go back to the office, I'll certainly get it and I'll follow up with you. And that's exactly what she does. There's some real techie stuff, but here's the little secret. Hardly anybody asks for that. When we show up with all that tech crap, it makes us feel good, because we think we're there justifying our existence. But I got news for you. They don't really want that stuff. So why bring it and cloud the sale or complicate the meeting? When they ask you for it, even if you're the techie person, then you could always get it. If they say, oh, I really want to know, how many people opened up a ticket last month regarding Adobe, say, I don't have that information in front of me, but I'd be happy to get it for you. And when I go back, I'll follow up with you and I'll send it to you. Okay. And you move on. I know people who would bring all that information and start showing it to them, even though they haven't asked for it. So again, keeping it simple is the way to go. We sell a ton of stuff. And again, I know some people say, well, you have to have all this techie information to prove to them that they need that. And I say, that's not true. You're an expert at what you do, right? They're your client. They know you, like you, and trust you. And you're a professional, and you know better than they do what's good for them and what they need for their business, right? It's just a matter of conveying it to them so they can easily understand it, and then see the value, and then say, yeah, there's enough value that I'm going to pay you for it. And that's really it. If you sold every one of your clients every single thing in your solution stack, really, you have nothing left to do, right? But even I'm not that good. I can't get to everybody. So there's always a process. But I tell you, if somebody says, no, I don't want to buy it, today, the next business review that you do, whether it's quarterly or semi-annually or annually or whatever, they're going to say, what's that red box? What's that yellow box? And another thing that does for you, Mike, is it covers your butt. Because there have been times where I have suggested hey, you really should, use Datto backup or SaaS data protection from Datto and back up your Office 365 tenant. And maybe they say, well, not going to do that right now. Okay. And then 6 months later, there's an issue and somebody wants to know why they can't restore the data and this is ridiculous, and I can go back and say, well, remember that yellow box or that red box? And remember I had presented that to you. You had signed off that you didn't want it at that time. So it covers your butt, and no one ever says, oh yeah, you know what, they say you're right. And they realize that they should have bought it. And many times, and then that's an opportunity for them to say, all right, well, let's do it now.
Yeah, I remember the conversation we were having last week. I talked to you. You were in the car on your way to a QBR, and you told me that this client was calling you in because I think they were paying you $1,000 a month, and they were looking to they're just a headache client for you, and they were looking to call you in to run you through the ringer and see if they can get you to monthly MRR down a little bit more, and you were going in to help them get it down to zero. I thought that was
they wanted to spend less, and what I did was I simply took the audit report and I started circling the green boxes, and I said, okay, we could remove this. And they're like, no, I don't want to remove that. I don't want to take AV out. We could remove this. And it also let me show them, well, you can remove this. What's that going to save me? $30 a month. So now you're spending $970 instead of $1,000. Oh, that's not enough. And they very quickly came to their own conclusion that what they were asking for was ridiculous. And what they really wanted to see is, can I give them exactly the same stuff, but for less money? And that's not how the game works. You can pay less money, but you have to give stuff up. And that they didn't want to do that. And then they quickly realized that even if they went somewhere else, they're going to be paying somebody else the same money, if not more, to do it. And, honestly, this was one of those clients that I really, if they went somewhere else, I didn't really care. But I think that alarmed them. I think they were concerned that I didn't have concern, and it wasn't because I didn't care about them, but it's because I was already doing a good job for them, right? And at the end of the day, I'm not going to apologize for selling somebody the right things that they need. And I told them, I said, look, if we parted ways today, I feel good about our relationship because you haven't lost any data, you haven't had any breaches, and we haven't had any significant downtime. And they were like, you know what, you're absolutely right. And so we left the meeting on a much different note than we started the meeting. That's rare. I don't have a lot of clients like that, but since you brought it up, yeah, that's kind of the full story there.
Yeah, I think you were on your way you were in the car when we spoke, you were ready to get rid of them. And I think you turned them around and ended up keeping a client, and now they're a better client for it. And I love the idea of, because you've mentioned this before, I want to talk about it a little bit because it's such a great strategy when you get into the presentation, whether it's a QBR or sales presentation, and then you get to that point where you're talking money, right? You've passed the close. You've got to the last page of the presentation, and you said, here's where you are, here's where we can take you, here's how much it's going to cost, and then you just don't speak, right? You let them speak first, and what they're usually going to want to know is, okay, let's do this, but let's talk about the numbers. That's such a great tactic of saying, well, here's all the things I want to make green. Let's talk about what you want to turn yellow and red.
Right. Yeah, I mean, now we're talking a little bit more about a prospect as opposed to a client. But the psychology there is the same. I find if I have the right audience, which I'm now pretty good at, I either have some mixture of a CEO, a COO, or a CFO, right, in the room. If I'm pitching to, somebody's secretary or an office manager, I have the wrong people in the room. They're not the decision makers, right? So let me elaborate on what you're saying by describing the reactions that we get using the audit report from a prospect standpoint, right? Can you pull up that first summary impact page? I know in one of your earlier slides, I saw like that first screen with the colors. There you go, right there. So this is recently I've gotten like immediate feedback, and I know Mike wishes I could bring a camera crew with me just to show you what prospects feedback, but that'd be kind of creepy because they're not my client yet. But
let me preface that.
All right, go ahead.
Because so I talk to you folks who are listening Every day I talk to MSPs, and probably the biggest challenge I have is helping you guys. And I can see some of the names on here. Some of the names I recognize, and I know they already are drinking the Kool-Aid. This is what it's all about, is trying to get you to drink the Kool-Aid so that you can go in and get more business, because we know it works, right? And the challenge I have with folks who are just trying audit for the first time, or maybe are users but they haven't really used it to the full extent, is that they can't get they haven't reached the paradigm shift that you don't need to go in with all sorts of technical detail. They want to know how we get the data in, and they want to put more in there, and they're questioning everything about how it works. And all I want to do is grab y'all like by the shoulders and shake you a little bit and go, just do one report and put it in front of a client or put it in front of a prospect. Because once you do that and you see their reaction, that's going to change everything for you.
Yeah, so let me tell you the reaction, right? So we presented this to a large orthopedic group, and it's probably, it's about a $10,000 a month MRR deal, so it's pretty good. And we presented to the CFO and the COO. There was another lady in there. She was high up, but she wasn't necessarily the decision maker. And we call this the summary impact page. So this is the first screen we land on, and they paid me $2,500 to do a 27-point audit. So as I start out my presentation, we all turn to this page, and I don't think I got the full sentence out, but what I was about to say to them was, I just want to remind you that what we did was a 27-point high-level audit. It's not forensic, detail audit. That's something that, if you wanted to pursue, we can do afterwards after you become a client. But right now, we analyzed 9 different areas under infrastructure, security, and managed support and services. And we want to highlight to you, the critical areas. And the COO cuts me off and goes, "This is great." And I go, "Really?" I go, "Why do you say that?" He goes, "I can understand this immediately." And he said, "I have no trouble communicating this to the partners who are the orthopedic surgeons." So I was like, okay. And I thought, well, that's a cool way to start. It's a great feedback. And then the CFO said to me, "So you mean," and this is not the one we had. I mean, their score was like a 42 or something. It was lower than this. But he
Right,
said,
and I don't think you had the financial summary on that page. I believe they didn't give you financial information, so you didn't include that, correct?
Well, this one did. There was another one didn't. So this one, they actually did have the information on there. And he said to me, "So you mean to tell me we're spending," I forget what it was, like $7 or $8 grand a month right now, and we only scored a 42? And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That's all the financial justification I need." And I didn't even get into the report. And I already thought to myself, wow, I have a COO and a CFO who immediately understand what this means. All right. It was pretty cool. And then we went on from there. That's one of the ones that I'm waiting to make a decision on. They invited me to their board meeting next week. So I take that as a buying sign. You're probably not going to invite me to your board meeting to tell me no. So I'm hoping that we can close that up. I'll give you an update on that after next week. The one you're thinking of, Mike, was a different one. I didn't know what they were spending. Very similar. I had the CFO and the CEO sitting with me. The CFO immediately pointed out to the CEO, "We're not spending enough money," right? And I didn't know what their number was. I think they eventually told me it was probably $2,500 a month. This turned out to be a $12,000 a month proposal from me. But he basically said, I knew it. He goes, "We're not spending enough money." And again, the financial tie-in there was, he looked, they scored like a 30 or something pathetic. And in his mind, we're spending $2,500 a month. We got a 30. We're not spending enough. So there's only 2 conclusions to be drawn from this page and the financial summary, right? And now I point that out to the prospect all the time. I either tell them, either one, you are not spending enough money and you're getting what you're paying for, and you have to decide if you're okay with that, because this is the first time anybody has ever made it easy for them to understand that. All right. Or number 2 is that they are paying enough money and they're not getting what they're paying for. right? So it makes it very easy to introduce the financial aspect of this. So it's either, hey, you're not spending enough, you have to be prepared to spend more, and I will show you how much it costs to get this right, and that's in my proposed plan. Or your current IT provider isn't doing the job that you think they're doing, and look at all the deficiencies. And either way, it puts you in a really favorable light and positions you for a win, for that sale.
It's amazing. Yeah, you know what? I want to make sure if anybody has any questions, feel free to enter them in the box. This is all about being more of an informational for you guys as opposed to showing you how to do something. So you got Frank here. He is an MSP. You can see that he's you can see what he's making. We showed you how much revenue he's making a month, how much MRR is coming into his MSP. Ask him anything. I've got him on Truth Serum today. So anything you want to know about how he runs and how he's doing this. I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's very simple. He's an audit user, pure and simple. And I think, sorry, question. Oh, no question coming in. So yeah, put the questions in if you got them, guys. Let's talk more about.
Yeah. Hey, while you're waiting for some questions, I wanted to point one thing out too, because you and I call that like shiny object syndrome. And I think, some people, especially if you're newer to audit, you're wondering like, how does the data get in there? And the conversations that we have with some prospects are kind of interesting, because someone will come over, right, if we're at a booth or something, and then maybe they say to me, hey, tell me about audit, and we give them a basic overview. And I always say, well, what do you do today, right? And they will, I'll call them prospects, but other MSPs always say, well, yeah, we cobble something together. It takes us forever to put it together. Well, how long? Oh, God, days. Really? Yeah. And I go, yeah, I know. I remember that, because that used to take me days too. And it was brutal doing these audits. It made me not want to do the audit. And remember, like from a marketing perspective, which I'm going to talk about in a second, we pitch these audits, and then someone raises their hand and says, I want to do an audit. And you're like, oh God, I got to do one of these things, right? So, an MSP will admit, man, it takes forever. I hate doing them. And then they go, how do you get the data into audit? And then we say, well, we don't import data. Like you already have all the tools for that. And that's when they go, oh God, I can't do it manually. And then I say, well, it takes me like less than an hour to do an audit. You're telling me it takes days, yet you would balk at the fact that we're not gathering data and importing it for you. So I just wanted to point out that, I sell all shiny objects too. Like right now we sell a lot of cybersecurity. It's a hot topic. We've sold a lot of cloud, BDR, and everything in between. Audit is the tool that makes it easy for me to sell all the shiny objects. The shiny object doesn't sell itself. It's the process, and we're using audit to sell it. So I wanted to really hammer that point across, that it's not that it's because I'm using a particular tool to gather data and it's shooting lasers out. It's that we're following a simple, easy to understand process that your prospects can understand, and that's what helps you make the sale with this tool. If you're looking for something shiny here, it's not. This isn't it.
Right, and you got to get around. I've had this. I think a couple people have already asked this question of how do we get the data in there. You got to get past that with trying to get data into our tool. My question to you is, where are you going to put it? There's 3 boxes where you can pump data into. Frank, I'll let you field that one. How do you get the data in there?
How do I get the data in there? So we're not importing it.
We're asked to, you've already said, and I think sometimes MSPs, you guys, you're trained to import data. You're trained to do this automated stuff. So people are asking this after you said you don't put the data in several times, right? So
yeah. So no imported data. What I'm doing is we're remember, these are audit items, right? So it quite simply, if we pick something like antivirus, right, and let's say it's for a prospect, you have multiple ways you can find out the state of the antivirus, right? And it doesn't, in importing the data doesn't really impact it. So what I mean by that is if you were to manually go to 20 workstations and write down, hey, all 20 of them have, you know, this particular AV, or none of them, or all different AV, right? Or if you use like a rapid fire tools product and you scan with that and you gather that information. Or I don't know, if you roll your RMM product in there, or whatever it is that you do today, just keep doing that. But you're supposed to analyze that data. You don't show up with the raw report. What I do is I turn it into a red, yellow, or green. Green would be, hey, you have corporately managed AV and it's on all the computers and up to date. That's great. Red, you don't have AV, you don't have it. Yellow might be, yeah, you got a little bit of everything, right? So I'm not worried about importing the data. What I'm doing is I'm gathering the data my own way that I'm comfortable with, and you should do the same. And then you use this to summarize it and present it. And this is in the language that your prospect understands. The other stuff that we're looking at, that it's in a language we understand. Problem is you're trying to take that data, import it into here, and then speak to them in a language they don't comprehend, and that's when they don't buy.
Yeah, our friend Brian Curtis, I'll reference something he said, because I know you're in a peer group with Brian. He's doing very, very well in his MSP. He's around what I think he does similar revenue with you. He tells me that he does a rapid fire. He uses rapid fire as well. He does a scan. He prints the report. It's like 4 inches thick. He goes into the client or prospect and he puts it on the desk, and he puts the audit report, 28-page report, next to it, and he'll tell the client, over here is all the technical details. We can go through everything here, or I've summarized it here. Which one would you like to go through? And nobody ever chooses the giant detailed technical report.
Yeah, so he's got a cool process with that. He says, you want to have a business conversation or you want to have a technical conversation? And they all go, oh, no, business conversation. It's interesting because you're giving your prospect a choice. And as Brian said, they always choose to have a business conversation, not the technical one.
Right. They don't need to see all the password encryptions or whatever. They just need to know that you've got it taken care of.
And I think some people call bullshit on us, Mike, because they think we're lying. They think that like we go in and we tell somebody, hey, you need endpoint encryption, when really maybe they don't. We're just trying to sell that stuff to them. And if we don't have all the backup material, then we're lying. I'm suggesting that you do all your research and you have all the validation behind the scenes to prove that they need that or that they don't have it, and here's why. But when you present it to them, this is a much easier and more succinct way for them to understand it, as opposed to giving them the empirical raw data behind it and letting them try to come to the conclusion times however many audit items that you might try to go through.
Right. Now, if you're going in and somebody asks this question, if you're going into a prospect or client and they are calling bullshit on you, that could be another problem, right? Like, so, and when folks are trying it out, I always tell them, do not go into like a client that already is on the bubble and present to them. Go to your best client. Go to a client that is a good client, somebody that you already have a good relationship with, and practice on them. Get their take. They do have to trust you. If you go to a client or a prospect and they don't believe you, it doesn't matter what you have, whether you have technical information or a summary report. Doesn't matter whether you have 1 page or 500 pages. If they don't believe you and they don't trust you as the expert, they're not going to believe you. So there could be a bigger problem there. We know audit works. We know it's people are crushing it with audit. So, if you have to have the backup, you have to have the swagger and the expertise to explain why something is red.
Yep. And I think that unless it's like a co-managed IT situation where you have IT guys in the room, for the most part, business owners, CFOs, CEO, they all want to have a business conversation. And, you could always have all that empirical data on standby, that you've sourced for them. For the IT guys, but I gotta tell you, the business owners don't want to sit there while you rifle through that with the IT guys. So I think with rare exception, unless you're just having the meeting with a bunch of IT guys from a company and you're trying to provide outsourced IT to them, and they're probably not the decision makers, unless it's that scenario, every other scenario I think works pretty well with audit.
Right on. So we got probably about 10, just a little over 10 minutes. Let's rifle through some of these. We're getting good questions now. How do you go about asking the prospect for the current expense, and how often do they actually get that? Do you actually get that info?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I realized I rarely ever asked for that in the past. I acted like, well, who cares what you're spending today? Because, whatever my proposal is what it is. But these days, I tell them point blank when we're doing the audit, I said, listen, it's a whole lot easier if I understand where you're at today, because when I present the report back to you, I'll be able to accurately show you if you're getting what you're paying for. So if I frame it that way, it's kind of like saying, I'm the doctor. If you lie to me, then the test results I provide to you may be inaccurate. So I simply ask for it. And I do understand that many times they don't know the exact number, but I can get them to give me a range. And that's why in the audit report, it's usually like you'll see here, monthly IT expense. In this case, it's 5,400 to 5,400, but sometimes it might say 5,000 to 5,400 because we don't know the exact amount, but we can have a ballpark. And as long as there's some number there, it usually makes it a lot easier to drive home the point that they're either not spending enough or they're spending enough, but they're not getting what they're paying for.
Right. And there's ways to do that. Listen, if you don't get that, leave it off. You can click off the financial box and leave it blank. So if you don't get that information, leave it off. It's great if you can have it because it does create a price anchor when you do your comparative, but they should make that leap. Like if somebody's at a 50, they should get that they're getting 50%, they're missing 50% of what they need. And they can start doing some calculations in their mind. If I'm paying $1,000 a month for 50, I guess what would my other IT guy, my current provider, what's he going to charge me for that other 50%? If 50% is 1,000, then it's 2,000. That's the answer. So they'll make that leap. How do you avoid getting into the weeds in the meeting? So this is another one who's asking about getting brought a audit report to a prospect, and the person wanted to know why it was red.
Yeah, so I mean, I rarely have somebody challenge me. If they ask me why is this red, I explain it to them. And you need to be prepared. You have to know what you're talking about. So you can't just throw a red box in and hope that they just they skip over it. They're always going to ask you why it's red or yellow. They don't care about the green. That's another secret. The green doesn't concern them as much. I mean, I mention the greens because sometimes I want to congratulate them and say, hey, you're doing a great job at backing your stuff up. It's really good. Oh, that's awesome. But you just explain it, and having an infographic available many times makes it easy for them to understand maybe what could be a complex concept. And again, if they're trying to drag you into the technical weeds, which I find rare, I mean, there's not too many, accountants and attorneys and financial planning professionals who really want to know all about the, the detailed mechanics of endpoint encryption. You explain it, tell them why it's important, and you don't have it. That's usually enough. I mean, I don't know how much more forensic you would need to get to show them that you're not using it or these are the risks, but it's kind of just really a conversation.
Right. So Scott's asking, do you provide feedback to your customers of what you do monthly, like performance, what programs you update, install, uninstall, cleanup, backups, Windows, updates, customer tickets, etc.? So I'm going to answer this before you answer it, Frank. I'm going to let you answer it, but I'm going to tell you, one of my first jobs when I was in my early career, before I did sales and marketing, is managing IT in a company. Believe it or not, I wasn't very good at it, but I was more of a business person. That's why they put me in that role. I wasn't there to be a technical person. I was there to manage the technical person who was a managed service provider. He was an outsourced IT guy. And I didn't care about any of that stuff. I just wanted to know if everything was working. So I'll tell you, as from being in that seat as a very non-technical person, I'm the sales and marketing person. I'm not technical. I barely know how to find files on my Mac computer. Like, if I want to lose something, I just save it on my Mac hard drive. So I didn't want to know any of that stuff, and neither does your clients. And I'm telling you, they unless they're a technical client, unless they're the IT guy, they probably don't want to know.
I would agree with you. You have to remind me what the question was. What was the question again, Mike? I got lost in your answer. I forgot what the original question was.
Yeah, it's how do we provide feedback to the customer on what you're doing monthly?
Oh,
performance, programs.
I can simply tell you how I handle that. Is I used to in the early days, every once in a while I get a client that would say, hey, can you meet with us? I come meet with them, and I never like getting called in for the meeting. I like to set the meeting. So when I get called in, I think something's up or wrong, and oftentimes I'm right. And they say, yeah, we're thinking about maybe getting rid of managed services because we really don't have any problems. We're not sure what we're paying you $2,000 a month for. And my head would ready to explode because I'm like, wait, we're doing all this stuff. So what we do is we send interim invoices twice a month on the 15th and the 30th. And, you know, whether you use, I use ConnectWise, but I'm pretty sure every, you know, RMM tool, I'm sorry, a PSA tool that you do this, you can send an invoice and show them what's covered under the agreement. So they'll get an agreement that's like $7,000 and then it says covered by the agreement. And behind it is all the pages of techie stuff that you think that they really want to see. It's all there and they get it twice a month. So I'm not showing up in a quarterly business review with 5,000 pages of that. They're getting it twice a month and they're being reminded about all the stuff that we're doing. So when they think about, you know, canceling the $2,000 a month contract, they go, shit, that would have cost me, you know, $14,000 last month if we paid for it hourly. And only cost us $2,000. And I don't think I've had that conversation with a client ever since then. So that's how I handle it. I do show value. I think that's important. I also send a report. I use Brightgate. So on the 20th of every month, I send them a report that summarizes, hey, here's all the inventory. Here are, you know, the top ticket requesters. Here's the top ticket types and all that other stuff. And again, it's an inline report. It looks great. Most of them don't read it. You know why? Because the report right in there says, hey, make sure your inventory is accurate before we bill you on the 1st. Well, what happens on the 10th? Someone will call up and go, oh, it looks like there's an extra laptop on here. And I say, oh, okay, because we sent you the report on the 20th and you didn't review it. And all that does is it covers my butt that I gave them an opportunity to do it. They just didn't do it. But that's how we're providing that feedback, not doing it in a quarterly business review. That I want to keep to be high level. And, you know, for me, it's a sales opportunity. I want to cloud it up with a whole bunch of like service stuff. Hey, Mike, there's only 5 minutes left. And I wanted to mention one thing. Can you pull up that spreadsheet again with the MRR? Because somebody else asked me about something. There's a significant increase second half of the year. And one of the things I wanted to point out here, yeah, so you could see like quarter one was somewhat slow, but quarter 2 and 3, we really had a lot of MRR. And can you pull my website up? Are you able to pull up a browser to rivertech.com? So we made a decision to redo the website using something called Building a Story Brand. And it's Donald Miller is the author, Building a Story Brand. And we redid the website because we realized we had all sorts of calls to action to rivertech.com.
It's so, to rivertech.com.
So we realized that although we were pitching audits and assessments, we weren't being clear enough as to what's the call to action. So you'll see right away, right in the middle there, schedule an assessment. Scroll down a little bit. And yeah, keep going. There's a whole idea around everything that's on this website. I'm not going to get into that, but keep going. And then schedule an assessment. Keep going. Keep going. And then schedule an assessment. And then if you're still not convinced, we actually have a report here. And I think, Mike, you helped me write this report. In fact, I think you wrote most of it. And this really tells you why you should do an assessment. So if the prospect hits your site and you drive traffic there and they clearly can see you want them to do an assessment, if they're not convinced, we capture the lead because they'll download this free report and we could follow up with them. If they read the report is really good at convincing them to schedule an assessment. So we're driving everybody to that funnel, schedule an assessment, and then that's when we follow our process. We also, if you scroll all the way to the top, we decided to hit our verticals. So our verticals, go down a little bit more. It's going to show you the 5 verticals here. There we go. Financial professional, attorney, accountant, nonprofit. And then we have a catch-all bucket, small business 10 to 200. And, you know, we kind of say, hey, if you're serious about your IT and not looking to save money, but use IT as a business enabler, then, you know, then you could be a fit for us no matter what industry. But those 4 verticals in the middle, or in the front, and then the catch-all, we're being very specific. You'll notice, like, we don't really advertise healthcare because it's not really a primary vertical of ours. So I don't really want doctors and dentists calling me. And surprisingly, I don't get really many calling me. But we get a lot of these people that fit these groups. So I believe that by doing a better job at articulating who we want to work with, following up with testimonials on the website from people within that vertical, and also speaking to them in their language, whether you're an attorney or an accountant, whatever, and making them understand, like, hey, we can help you because we've helped these others. Schedule an assessment, and then we do the audit, and we go from there. And this process has worked really well for us, and it's really been evident in the last, the second and the third quarter, and carry forward into the fourth quarter. So I just wanted to point that out, because this site you guys can go to and you could check it out. If you have questions, you could follow up with us afterwards.
All right, just to answer, Andy's asking if we have an example of the spreadsheet that was mentioned. That is on the blog. Just go looking for our QBR. I can't remember what the title was. I guess I could go to the website and show you where that is. Let's see. So you want to go hit the blog. I've got this question box in the middle, so it's hard to see. No. This is it. How to do quarterly business reviews. So this will have all of that stuff down here. You can click here to get the entire kit. So it tells you what's what. Frank mentioned he does the top third. His inside salesperson does the mid third. Do the bottom third just get a call email?
Yeah, so the bottom third, we're typically doing an annual review, and many times it's a phone call. Those are usually like the sub $1,000 a month group, and we'll do a call with them if we really think there's an opportunity for growth, or if they request it, then we'll come on site.
Right.
But again, there's only so much of us to go around. I got to focus where I think the greatest impact to our bottom line is going to be.
Sure. You aren't going to send them an audit report without a meeting.
Mm-mm.
I think that's
never, unless you don't want to talk to them ever again. In fact, when I do my report or my meeting, first meeting is usually like the fact-finding meeting. So they agree, yes, let's do the assessment, and if I'm charging, here's what it costs, etc. I usually do the fact-finding on the first meeting. Sometimes we go back, but most of the time, first meeting. Second meeting, I have them come to my office. I want to control the environment. They come to my office, we present the audit report to them, and I show them a demo of our platform. So I want a little sizzle in there too. So I want them to, have a little bit of that, to go, take back with them. Then we schedule the third meeting to make a decision, and that's when they decide what they want to do. We usually go back to their office. They don't leave with my proposal ever. You do not get to see how the sausage is made. All that proposal is just a formal verification that the number I have in the audit report telling you, hey, this is what it would cost you monthly, is based on something real. I didn't pluck it out of the air. But you don't get to have my proposal, because otherwise they just take it and go shop it around. And I'm not going to tell anybody else what we're using and how we're doing it. And that's basically the process. But you never give it to them without meeting.
Gotcha. So got a person asking how you arrive at the monthly IT expense. Here's what I would suggest you do is, again, go to our blog, and we have this effective IT monthly expense video and blog post that'll go all in detail on that. So check that out. And then the last question, we're just over 3 o'clock. Have you raised the price of your assessments over the years? So we'll end off with that question.
Yes, I've done two things. One is I've tried doing it for free. And I will tell you that if you give somebody something for free, they think it's worth nothing. So don't give it away for free. What I am a fan of is maybe discounting it. So this is something that John Matazity taught me. So I'll give him full credit. And I'll just use his basic math. Let's say you charge $997 for your audit. And let's say you go, hey, we'll discount it down to $497. So whatever, hey, it's end of year special. Hey, you got referred to by Joe. Whatever it is, it's $497. However, if you decide to use us, what we'll do is we'll credit you the full $997 towards the onboarding project. So if you think about it, in the third meeting, so at the end of the second meeting, I say, hey, let's schedule the next meeting. You can decide, whether you want to move forward for us. Either you're going to give me $500 or I'm going to give you $1,000. And kind of laugh, ha 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 ha. We laugh about it, right? But I tell you what, they think about that, right? And they have to make a decision. Are they going to use me, and I'm going to give them $1,000 credit against the onboarding project, or are they going to tell me no, and they're going to give me 500? So I thought it was a pretty genius like marketing sales tactic. And that's what we do. Raising the prices, I don't know they've raised it a ton, but we're usually charging it around the $1,000 range. If it's a much larger group, like the last two that I did, I charged $2,500 because it just took me a lot longer time, and I think that's consummate with with the type of job that and the time that's required to put it together.
Right on. So with that said, we're gonna wrap up. I've got another question, and I'm gonna wrap with this. I'll answer this. Is there a presentation where I can see how you feed the squares? Absolutely. Definitely. What I would suggest to anybody who hasn't, sign up for a free trial. Go to auditforit.com. Just go right here, click on free trial, and you can get started. If you check the blog, there's articles and trainings that go into the platform. There's webinars that we've done. We've got recordings of webinars all over the place. When you do sign up for a trial, you're going to get the quick start videos, and that shows you exactly how you do your first audit. So lots and lots of stuff there. I wish we had more time because I wanted to get into how you're generating leads and how you're prospecting and all that stuff. Frank, I guess we'll have to leave that for a part 2, and I'll leave folks off with a final thought is if you have questions that you'd like Frank to answer on a comeback webinar, send me an email at mike@auditforit.com. and let me know what they are. We'll get them back on, give them some more truth serum, and answer all your questions.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.